Oh, we are live. Hey team, welcome. Welcome to the first of the KMR Q&A series for 2024. You can hopefully see that I'm being joined by Karen Hill from Hillistic Coaching. Hey Karen, how you going?
Hey Manny, I'm going pretty well, thanks. How are you today?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Thanks for joining us. You can't quite see it out behind me there, but I can actually see Kanani out my window there. It's one of the views I get to see most days, which is pretty awesome. So welcome, guys. We're going to have a chat in the coming weeks on some different topics to do with KMR, get you some advice on how to have the best time up there with your run with Kunani. Hopefully get you kicking those goals that you've all got for KMR for 2024. We thought we'd kick off the series this year with some nutrition because it's pretty important for everyone out there to get that correct on the day to make sure their day goes as well as possible and they can get the best result and ultimately have the best fun up on the mountain, have all those fantastic stories to tell when you get to meet me back in the yard at the end of your day. So what I'm going to do first is I'll get Karen to introduce herself, tell us a little bit about her background and what she does with Hillistic Coaching. And looks like we might have a technical issue, guys. Karen appears to have frozen. So now you're stuck with me. So what I'll do while we get Karen back online is that we are going to be running these events every couple of weeks. We're going to kick off with this one tonight on nutrition. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to get a bit of a preview of the courses. Obviously, the 25-kilometre run, the mountain run this year has become part of the Golden Trail National Series, which is really, really big for KMR. It puts us in a national series of events of most of the 22, 25-kilometre events. And the winners of that series then get to go off and to the World Series. They get a fully paid trip to that. So that is now part of who we are as KMR. It's pretty big in Europe, the Golden Trail. It's the first year it's in Australia, and we're one of 4 events that will be part of that. Then we're going to kick on. We'll have a couple of guys talking about the 66-kilometre event. And then in the future weeks, we're going to be talking to Simone Brick and Grace Tame about mental strength and running. And then we're also going to do some stuff on our women's initiatives and finishing it up. I can't remember what the last one is, but that's in a month's time. So we'll definitely know what that is. Looks like we've got Karen back, which is fantastic because otherwise you've just got half an hour of me telling you to eat stuff when you run,
Yes.
which is not advice I take at all, I must admit. I'm terrible on the nutrition side of things. So, Karen, I was just saying that I was going to quickly get you to introduce yourself, let everyone know what you do with Hillistic Coaching and your background in this area.
Yeah, sure. So I run an online nutrition business called Hillistic Coaching. It's obviously a combination of a play on my name and taking a holistic approach to nutrition coaching as well. I think I've probably been doing endurance sports for quite some time now. But and the interest for me came through like wanting to, I guess, learn how to fuel my own body and making all the mistakes that we generally make along the way. So I ended up spending far too long at university and going down a bit of a research path with it as well, looking at protein supplementation and endurance training. And now I really enjoy working with off-road endurance athletes. I do work with some on-road. I try not to discriminate too much about them, but off-road is where I love it most, and that's sort of the people that I work with the most. So mountain biking is what I predominantly do, and then trail running is and just adventures in the mountains. Pretty much since I moved to Tassie is sort of feeds that hunger of getting out into the mountains.
Yeah, nice one. And then you have competed before in KMR, and you are competing this year, I believe.
I am. I did the 25K last year. I didn't have time, and I never had Strava, I guess, when I first started doing some longer adventures in Tassie. So I didn't have the qualifying run to be able to do the ultra last year. So this year I am doing the ultra and done a couple of 50Ks, 50, 60K runs in the lead up. So I think some of those just going out and qualifying adventures is part of the fun of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Strava's responsible for a lot of us doing stuff that we didn't think we could ever do. It's a bit of a devil, that that app. So if you are listening in, feel free to leave your comments and questions for Karen. We're going to get into some of the nutrition stuff with her now. We've got some base questions here. But if you do have a question, pop it in the comments and we'll get to those as we go along. But I guess one of the big ones for me, Karen, and thanks for sending through some stuff that you think people might be interested in. And this is one of the big ones that I've dealt with in doing, long range events. And sorry, I'm one of those road runners. And one of the big things is what's important to focus on during the race event week. I think a lot of us think that we carb load the night before, but I feel like that might be too late at times. We'll just hang on while we try and get Karen back. We are having a couple of issues here with our connection tonight. So bear with me and we'll get Karen back online and hopefully she'll answer that question. G'day, Colleen Davidson. We will get to your question. Thanks for joining us. Chuck in there in the comments if you can, letting me know what event you're doing. Once Karen comes back on, we'll get to your question. And your question there goes on to mine as well. It's something that I've struggled with, whether it's just carbs the night before or no protein and what we should be doing. And when Karen comes back in and joins us and we've got through that technical issue, we'll get her to answer that. So we're just waiting for her to come back on now. There is nothing like technology. And if you've seen us at a presentation for KMR, you'll know that we fly by the seat of our pants on these sort of things. And as our first foray into doing this, we're having a couple of issues. I'm just being told from our fabulous producer, Kat, that Karen is just about back with us. And then we can get her to answer the questions. My question and the ones going on. Colin's doing the 25 as a 25 kilometres first timer, road runner the past 12 years. Well, my advice for you is to lift your knees. I'm a road runner as well. I'm terrible on the trails because I don't lift my knees enough and I end up spending half my time tripping over stuff. So we look forward to seeing you up on the mountain in Kunani and getting your done. And I'm still being told that we're waiting for Karen to connect. So this isn't off to the great start. We'll probably go over a half an hour here, guys, but that's okay because we're going to be guided by you guys on these chats. If you've got loads and loads of questions, we will stick here. We'll get them answered as much as we can. And what Karen's going to do at the end of it, if we do have any questions that are left over, she is going to put them together and send out an email and a link to people via our Facebook and our socials, answering those questions that we may not have got to, so that we can recap for everyone and everyone is getting an opportunity to have their questions answered. We're a little over, must be 6.5, 7 weeks from the event now, and we plan on being here hopefully every couple of Wednesdays to have a discussion with you, and we'll follow that same format of getting an idea from our guests as to what's going on, what their tips and tricks are for getting it done up on Kunani. I've only ever watched it from the finish line. They're trying to convince me that I should at least run one of the legs at some point, but my motto is I get all the shirts with none of the work. So we're going to get some really good tips out of the people who are on with us. We've got the likes of Brodie Nankervis, who will be competing in the 25 kilometre and heading, trying to get that spot in the Golden Trail Series. I've already mentioned Simone Brick. She's a 4-time Australian mountain running champion, both Salomon athletes. So we're going to have both of them on. Welcome to Zach Stewart. And we'll get to your question, and to Julie Code, who's also on her first 25 kilometre event. Hello, Karen, you're back. Thank goodness. I've been sitting here waiting and going a little bit nuts, trying to just wait for you to come back. So my question was around what is important to focus on in race week and event week in the way of nutrition.
Yes, sorry everybody, I seem to keep getting kicked off. So race week is important to, I guess, not leave everything to race week and think that, we can just, either carb load and that's going to just give us enough energy to get through the race. really important still to focus on like your carbohydrate content and fueling your sessions in the lead up to the race. You can use race week as a way of, topping up your energy, getting good sleep, hydration, and focusing on, carb loading in depending on what event you're doing, whether it's like the ultra or the 25K, will depend on whether you might do one day out or whether you start looking at adding in extra carbohydrates, 2 to 3 days out. But the most important thing is not to leave it just to race week. So, fueling your training sessions, each and every one, in the lead up to that, even from now, like we're, a couple of months out of that. And I guess it all really does start from now in terms of making sure you're getting the most out of your training sessions, and then using race week as a way to top up. And that can be through carbohydrate loading in that last couple of days. I guess a couple of points to think about with that is it's not necessarily a reason to, overeat food in general. It's about putting extra energy into your muscles so that you can, hold a high pace for a bit longer, over that race day. And it's important to also practice what you're going to do in that race week in your training before you get to it, because carbohydrate loading can leave some people feeling a bit lethargic and sort of full feeling. So that's where it's to practice how much you have and also how it makes you feel as well. And it'd be interesting to see, for those people that have done it or, tried it before, how it's gone for them as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's that famous footage of the marathon runner.
But they would be, my, I guess, things to think about for race week is, one, not leave everything to race week, but then also make sure,
Yeah, pretty important to not be trying anything new. There's that famous footage of the marathon runner who tried the gels, and it went a little bit wrong for him because he tried them in the first week or in the day of the race. So Colleen Davidson, it's probably a backup to that, and she's asked, do you recommend carbs the night before and no protein, or protein and carbs?
Yeah, that's that actually leads me to another point, and I may be cutting. Definitely still like small amounts of proteins with your carbohydrates. You're going to focus, and it may be that you have a focus on carbohydrates the day before, but you're still having a small amounts of protein that are spread evenly throughout the day as well. It's just you're not overloading your body with, fat and fiber and filling up on foods that you then can't eat.
And it looks like we are having some troubles with the connection at Karen's end. I'm just going to converse with Kat, guys, and see how we're going to deal with this. We do have all your questions there coming through in comments, which is fantastic. I'll answer one of them. We are still, and it was asked by Joshua Chug, thanks for joining us, Joshua. And you've asked which hammer electrolyte product will be on course. We're still waiting to confirm that. That'll be out in the next, hopefully, the next couple of weeks. We'll get confirmation of which of the hammer products and bulk nutrients we're going to have on course at the aid stations. So that'll come out through the socials. We'll hopefully have it maybe in the time when Karen sends out her information on this session, so we can get that out to you so that you know which ones are going to be there. It's great to have both hammer and bulk nutrients on board for those aid stations and having their product with us, which will make the day a whole lot better for you guys, obviously, of getting to those aid stations and being able to refuel and take on board whatever electrolytes and what products are needed to get you through the rest of the day. Paul Martin's also on with us, and Paul, you're looking to sign up to the 67. We will get Karen's views on cramping, which can obviously be pretty detrimental to your run up there on Kunani and your run with Kunani. It's an interesting topic that we need to hopefully get Karen back online so that she can give you some tips there for how to avoid that, not only during the day, but in other runs as well, your training runs and all that sort of stuff, so that you are getting the best out of your efforts for the big one. I've noticed there you've said that you're thinking about signing up there, Paul. I think you definitely should sign up and join us. And it looks like Karen's back with us. You got me now, Karen, or are we still on a bit of a delay?
I am back.
And now she's not. So this is working very well. Thanks all for your patience, guys. I'm just going to have a chat to Kat and see which way she wants to go here, because obviously you don't want to be listening to me pad for half an hour while we try and get this. So what we're going to get Karen to do is we're going to get her to join on her phone rather than through her laptop, which means she might only have her voice. I'm not sure how that'll go, but just bear with us and we will get to that. So please bear with me. She should have video too, is what I'm being told. All right, Karen, are you here?
I am. I will try on my phone. If I keep getting kicked off, I will do another recording that answers people's questions and post it online, so it's not quite as disjointed as well. But we'll see how we go. And I've got the link ready to jump on my phone, try on my phone if I get kicked off again. But for Paul, was we looking at Paul's question in terms of views on cramping and how nutrition might help prevent that?
Yeah, let's go with that one. We can. I'm listing them here, and we can jump back and forwards between them.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I definitely also agree that Paul should sign up to the 67. So there's a few main things with cramping. Obviously, making sure that you are training, I guess, from a physiology point of view in terms of preparing your muscles for the work that's going to be undertaken. And then it's looking at your sodium intake, your hydration, and your carbohydrate intake. So they're actually the three main things that I would look at and get consistent doing through your training sessions and also your racing. So at the moment, I would start with looking at how much sodium you have per hour when you're running, how much, like if you're hydrated before you start, how much fluid you're drinking through your runs. And then I'd also look at your carbohydrate intake. So are you having enough? And I guess what is enough? That can range and depend what you're doing now. But, for any runs, around that 2 hour mark, or if it's a little bit less.
And we've lost her again, which hopefully means she's going to jump on her phone, which might be a little bit more stable. She's obviously got a bit of a connection issue at her end, which is obviously unfortunately causing a few problems with us. Please bear with us while we get this right. We've got no time frame tonight, so I am happy to stick here as long as it takes us to get this up and running. If you've ever been to KMR or competed been there as a competitor, or even just watching the race, you'll know that I don't mind a chat, and I can probably keep doing this for hours. So I will continue to do this until we get Karen back. She's going to jump on her phone, hopefully. I do have all your questions here listed. So thanks, Julie, for your question. Paul, we're on to yours at the moment. Joshua Chug, I've got yours there as well. Once we do get Karen back, we will hit those to her. And just getting notification here of the phones. If we do have issues with Karen's phone holding the connection, what we might do is we might reschedule and possibly do this maybe next Wednesday, another night, because we think this stuff is really important for you guys. And we want you to get this information. So Karen's kindly, and has been fantastic in allowing us to use her expertise for all of you guys. So if we can't keep this stable, we might reschedule. But that looks so much clearer right now, Karen, and hopefully there's not a massive delay in you hearing me right
now. No, I can hear you now. I'm on my phone, so let's see how this goes.
Are you somewhere in a third world country or just with Vodafone or something like that?
I'm in Sandy Bay and I run an online business. I never have any issues with my internet connection on any of my calls or anything. So I was like, oh gosh, I won't have any issues with this. And now I'm like, I can't connect. So we'll see how we go.
Just one of those things. So I think we were looking at the question in relation to cramping. So
yes. So I'm not sure, what did you hear?
Quite a lot of it.
Okay.
But we've got time. Let's just start again, crank on into it, and give us some advice about cramping.
Okay, perfect. So look at your sodium intake, your hydration, and your carbohydrate intake are the main three things that will benefit if you're a cramper. So you can assess where you're at now. Look at actually how much sodium per hour you're having when you're out doing your activities. How much hydration, whether that's water, electrolytes, or a carbohydrate mix you're drinking. And also how many grams of carbohydrate per hour are you eating, would be somewhere to start. So, and actually getting a bit of a baseline of what you're doing now. And then, and in particular with carbohydrates, looking at, are you at least doing 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrate per hour if you're out longer than 2 hours on the trails. And then also, if you're out over kind of 3 hours, if you're training for the ultra and you've got some big long sessions planned, then it's also about adding in 5 to 10 grams of protein per hour over that time as well. So get a baseline. Obviously sodium and hydration requirements are quite individual, and you can have some recommendations, but it's also good, if you're going out on the trails for an hour or so, and you have access to just some scales before you go, just to get a rough idea on like your body weight before you go and your body weight when you come back, just to see, how much fluid balance or fluid loss you have, but taking into consideration if you eat or drink on that run as well. But they would be my three main things to take a look at for cramping, and increasing all three of them if you are a cramper. Do it slowly, build up slowly over time, so that you don't run into other issues. But definitely if you're a cramper, increase those three things, and see how you go.
So a secondary one from me there is, if you get the cramps, how do we, you've done everything, but you've still got cramps, how do you deal with that?
Then you can look at other things like pickle juice when you're out running, and it may just be that you aren't physically prepared for what you're undertaking, but also slowing down a little bit, like stretching, taking on more hydration, but small sips, not having big gulps of just plain water. If you are cramping or you're quite dehydrated out on the trails, which will generally be if it's super hot, you're slightly dehydrated and over consuming plain water as well. So small sips of like electrolyte base can help over time, and just bringing your pace down as well to let your body recover slightly and putting some energy back into your system.
Yeah, cool. And Colleen Davidson's asked, she wanted to know how often she should have her, and she said hammer electrolytes, but whichever electrolyte she's using, how often should she be having those during, let's say, the 20K, 25K event?
Yep. So that it all does come down to an individual basis on what you've been doing through your training. But taking on and looking at sodium chloride is going to be your main electrolyte that you want to take in. And that will depend on your sweat rate and your sodium loss, but somewhere around like that 300 milligrams per hour as a minimum. But just keeping in mind, it is individual based depending on, if you're a high salty sweater, your requirements could be anywhere up around 800 milligrams or even 1,000 milligrams per hour of sodium. So some people may be less.
Oh, no.
Some people may be more. I'm still here. Can you still hear me?
Oh, good. Yes. We can. Well, we couldn't hear you. We can hear you now.
Okay, good. So I would start and have a look at their hammer electrolyte, because I know the hammer, there is going to be hammer electrolytes out on course. So it is really good to use what is going to be at the aid stations, like through your training as well, so that you're familiar with those products and you know how they're going to feel. So that actually brings up a good point, Colleen, around if you're going to be using what's at the aid stations, which they're going to be pretty well stocked. So practice some of those things in training. So I think there will be like the hammer electrolytes, there'll be hammer gels, there'll also be, like jam sandwiches, some lollies, muesli bars, and hopefully there'll be some soups at the aid stations further out for the ultra, and looking at maybe getting some protein options and some savory options as well. So it's important to use what is at the aid stations in your training, so that you're not putting anything new into your body and running that risk of stomach upset through the race.
That nearly makes me want to leave the run hub and the food trucks to come and try what's at the aid stations, but not quite. Now, it leads us into that Zach Stewart he said he'd love to hear any recommendations for good long run snacks. He's always looking for variety.
Yes. So there's lots. So if you want to go with more whole foods, then you can use anything from like jam and peanut butter, like sandwiches or wraps. I would stick with more white breads, and I tend to cut the crust off. They kind of squish a bit better and you don't really get much from the crust. But the white bread, so it's less fiber, it's less risk of causing any stomach upsets, and it's easier to digest on your system as well. You can use, there's like any of the hammer products that are going to be out on course as well would be good to try. Like you've got they do some good energy bars, which can just break up the sweetness. Boiled potatoes with either some butter and oil or salt. If you want like a savory option, like Vegemite sandwiches, you can use any home baked like energy bars, muesli bars. I guess the good thing to think about is what foods do you really look forward to eating, and that will help you eat on a long run. There's also these other, they're called Ballast apricot bars. They're like $1 something, and they're a great, easy to eat sort of thing. Otherwise, there's more sports-based foods. Like if you're going to do either the 25 or the ultra, then getting used to hammer gels would be a good option, and adding in any savory options. You can use like scrolls, even like muffins or things like that as well. crumpets, cold, fruit cakes, banana breads.
So what I'm hearing here is that you trail runners just spend the whole time eating.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's like you get to pack it's like the fun part. It's like you go and plan, however long your run is going to be, and then the snacks that get to go with it as well. So
yeah. What's your favourite snack for a long run? And for those listening, put it in the comments as well. What's your favourite snack?
yes.
I'm just going to duck over here and turn my light on so that I don't go into complete darkness.
Yep, good idea.
There we go.
For my favourite snack for long running, I go through a few different phases. Like the last long run I did, I actually took a lot of English muffins with just honey and a bit of salt, because the benefit with them is you get 5 grams of, it was like just a perfect 1 hour snack, because you get there was 40 grams of carbohydrate, 5 grams of protein, you're done for the hour. Plus then I love lollies as well, so I tend to use I tend to add in a few lollies and stuff with them out on the trails as well, especially if you're going through little bits of, you're out on a long run and you hit a black hole, sort of a mentally challenging part of your run. It's always nice to have a little bit of a sugar kind of pick you up going out.
Just hold on there, guys. It might just hopefully be a little pause there for Karen, and hopefully she'll be back with us.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes, cool.
I'm not dropping off this time, which is good. The other snack that is probably favourite for mine at the moment is this banana bread that's just 3 ingredients, and it's the quickest and easiest thing to make, which maybe I'll share, and we'll put out a document with a list of snacks and stuff, and I'll pop it in there so everybody can get some run snack ideas.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to go back to one that was asked earlier on, just because I don't know that we got to it quite right with our little technical issues there.
Yes.
And it also flows into a secondary question. So Colleen Davidson asked, do you recommend just carbs the night before and no protein? And then there was a follow-up to that, where Julie Code said she'd only just discovered that you can put carbs in water, similar to an electrolyte tab. So can you have a chat about those two? Obviously, the first with the carbs or protein the night before, and then water-based carb tablets.
Yeah, so the night before, I'd still definitely include a small amount of protein with your dinner. So, in those days, in the couple of days leading up to the event, your focus is going to be on carbohydrate-based foods, but you still need to have, your regular servings of protein throughout the day as well. So, that might still, whether you're meat or meat-free, you'd still include a protein source with each of your meals, along with a carbohydrate as well. So it just means that the focus is on carbohydrates, but you still have a small amount of protein, and a small amount might just be, whether it's lunch, whether it's, 100 or so grams of tofu or a tin of tuna or whatever your food preference for protein source is, there's always still going to be one there. And, a smaller serve of colors or vegetables with that meal, but you're always still going to have some protein with the carbohydrate the night before. And with actually each of your meals and snacks, there should always be a protein source there, just going off topic for a moment. And then, the carbs in the water, yes, you definitely can. So you can get the carbohydrate-based sports drinks, which some of them will have some electrolytes in them as well. And they can be quite handy, for taking out on your runs. Some people rely on them maybe a little bit too much, and you end up not being able to consume as much hydration as you need without over consuming carbohydrate, if that makes sense. But they can be a good source to use as well, in combination with solid foods. And if you feel sick, through your run, having a liquid carbohydrate source can actually just help a little bit. So the liquids are going to digest a lot easier, and be a little bit more gentle on your stomach compared to like the solid foods. You just need to make sure that you get the concentration and the mix right so that it's not too strong. And just making sure again that you're trialing them in training runs, and not trying anything new in your race.
Yeah, definitely keep the new stuff out of the race day. Julie's also asked, and this is an interesting one for me, you've talked about at the aid stations we will have the Hammer products, including gels. And obviously the longer you run, the harder those gels seem to be to get down. I know at the end of some of my longer events, it's can't stand the gels. And she's asked, is it true you need to drink 250 to 300 mils of water with every gel you have?
You might need, depending on like the gel, like 150 mil is generally enough. Like if you out on the trail, like you can't always be that specific in terms of the amount you're having, but if you've had a gel, you might want to have a mouthful of water with it as well. It doesn't have to be that much. Like 100, 150 mil would be plenty. It's because the gels are so concentrated in terms of the amount of carbohydrate in them. So the water is helping dilute them. So if you find that you, at any point in the race, you're having gels and you find that your stomach is getting a bit crampy, then that's where you might need to either have a little bit more water, or you might choose something else that isn't quite as concentrated in carbohydrates. So you might even have like half a gel at a time, or you might have a bit of water before you actually have the gel, rather than the other way around. Oh, I'm back. Am I back?
Yes, I was doing a countdown. I was a couple of seconds off.
I can still hear you. I must just drop out on my end. So, did you catch most of that?
Yes, it was just the last little comments that we were getting. But yeah, I got there that It's not necessarily, it's kind of what works for you, and it doesn't have to quite be as much as 200.
No.
Oh, everyone's telling me they're not losing you. It's just me.
Oh, okay.
So I just need to shut up a little and let you go by the sound of things.
No, that's fine. But I would play around with that. If you're out on long runs and you plan on using the gels through, the race, and it may be that you're using a combination of different food sources. So, when you're out on a long run, do what you're going to do in the race or the event to see how it feels, and to get a sense of how much water you need to drink. The other thing would be, make sure you're starting the session and the event in a hydrated state as well. That can be quite helpful for your digestive processes.
Cool. I'm getting comments here to say that everyone else can hear you. Apparently it's just me. So next time you go silent on my end, I'll just wait and leave the air dead for you to go through it. Now, Craig Loosemore's here, and he has said that date and walnuts have been a tasty and simple alternative to the technical bars and gels.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
Cool.
The medjool dates with a little bit of salt, just crushed up on them as well, can be quite nice out on the trails. Just take the pips out first so that you don't break your teeth on them.
Good idea. The one I like with salt, was watermelon with a bit of salt on it.
Interesting.
Which was absolutely fantastic. Now, I'm going to come back to one of our questions here that's come through, but I wanted to ask you one, and I know I have this problem, and I know other people who do have this problem as well, and that's feeling nauseated when you're running. Like you get to that point of going, I need to take on food, but then you do it and you just want to throw it back up. How do we deal with that? What can get us through it?
Yeah. Yep. So that comes down to what we call training your gut in your training in the lead up to an event. Can be one of the best ways to actually offset that through a race. So we spend a lot of time training like our physical muscles, we also need to spend time like training our digestive muscles while we're running. So that means, when you're out on the trails, it's eating through, most of your runs. I would probably say that 95% of us probably undereat, that do endurance sports. And it can also come down to a mixture of people thinking that they're not running fast enough, they don't need to eat, I'm only out on the trails for less than 2 hours. All of these things kind of combine, and people just don't eat enough running. So my general rule of thumb, if you're out on the trails for longer than 90 minutes, you need to eat. And it can be very beneficial for your training and how your body responds to your training, and also through your race day. So the more that you can practice eating through your training, the better your stomach is going to be through events. And that's going to help offset feeling sick. But if you do feel sick out on the trail, if you're doing the ultra in particular, and I guess that nauseated feeling generally comes up the longer you're out there for, the recommendations are about 200 to 400 calories per hour, made up of 30 to 50 grams of carbs and 5 to 10 grams of protein. If you're feeling nauseated, it's about dropping it back to that sort of 200 calories per hour, and also reducing the pace so that your digestive system can recover. You may swap to easier to digest things like liquid calories, and give the solids a break for a couple of hours. Comes back to also making sure that you're not just consuming like gels with no fluid as well. So there's nothing like too concentrated going in. But I'm just going to turn my light on. But I would also recommend that you don't continue eating 200 calories or less for more than, a couple of hours. There's a couple of really good research papers that look at single stage endurance events, and eating less than 200 calories for, multiple hours in a row significantly increases non-finishing times. If you need to reduce your intake until the nausea passes, do that for as limited amount of time as possible. So looking at, and it can be a good thing, so looking at how many calories per hour you're eating, and can you increase that? Can you practice increasing that over the next, the next couple of months in the lead up to the event? Even if you're doing the 25K, it still becomes really important for that.
Yeah, for sure. And what I'm hearing here is that, we all should be doing this from now. We're at the critical point of getting this stuff under control now, rather than just leaving it right until the end, which hopefully everyone is. Another question here from Colleen about how much water should she carry for the 25 kilometre. She drinks a lot as she sweats quite heavily. So what sort of amount of water should we be taking for the 25K and the ultra as well?
Yep. So I would definitely carry at least 500,000. If you've got like the blue little water bottles that fit in your hydration pack, they're generally about 500 mils each. Starting with 2 full ones of those, and then using the aid station to fill up where necessary. So, if you sweat quite heavily, and if you're comfortable drinking, 500 mil of water per hour, then, that would be a really good starting point. And you may just put either, some electrolytes, like the hammer's going to be out on course, so you could use that through your training, or you could use a pinch of salt in your water, just to make sure, that you're actually hydrating properly. But aim as a starting point at 500 mil an hour. And then obviously the temperature is going to, potentially change that as well. If it's hotter, you might need to drink more. If it's cold, you may need to drink a little less. But also judge it by your thirst, and also where the water points are available as well, and how hydrated you are before you start.
I guess it's one of those important things. You're better off to be out there with more than you need than hunting for it while you're out there.
Yes, yep, because you do have to get to the top of the mountain before there's a aid station for the 25 as well. So it's a long climb up.
It is. It's pretty brutal. Looking at some of the comments that are coming through here, Craig has said he hadn't thought of salting them with the dates. So hopefully you give that a try, Craig, and see how that goes for you out there on the course. So we've done the event. We've got through. You've received a sweaty high five from Manies across the line. And he's had a bit of a chat to you. What do we eat after the run? Because obviously we're all about keeping people safe afterwards as well. We're not just you've done the event, off you go. What do we eat after the run? And I'm thinking we don't go straight to the Cascade tent. We do that for a little bit. What do we have?
Well, if you're going on potentially on the way, I'd probably go past the bulk nutrients tent, grab some protein and carbohydrates, and that will most likely be in a liquid form. So we need to think about there's 3 R's for recovery to take into consideration. So you need to think about rehydrating, so with fluids, refueling. I was like, what are they again? Refueling with carbohydrates, so replenishing the energy that you have used, and repairing your muscles with protein. So sometimes you'll find like a liquid will do all 3 of those. And sometimes at the end of like a big event, like KMR, you may not feel like eating something solid. So that's where it is like the liquids can come in handy, and bulk nutrients will be supplying the proteins and the recovery after the event. So on the way to the Cascade tent, make sure you go past the bulk nutrients tent first. And make sure you are ticking those 3 R's. And those 3 R's also become really important after every session in the lead up to the event as well. So that's where, a lot of your benefit is going to come from, making sure that you're eating through your sessions, and then also taking care of your recovery after each of your sessions, and also the events. So it just means then you're going to recover better from it. You're not going to be as sore for as long, and you can get back out doing the things you love a lot quicker.
See, that dropped out just when you finished. Oh. So I was sitting there, not like you were still talking. I'm like, she's finished talking. I've been caught out here.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, now Kat has put up one there from Sid Phillips. Kat, I'm just going to come back to that because Paul Martin's just asked to clarify with the 200 to 400 calories per hour, that recommendation. Is that something you do from race start, or is that after we've kicked over the 90 minutes?
Do it right from the start. So within that first hour. So the thing, if you can go into the events, so eat early and eat often. So starting within your first hour. And it might be choosing where there's, I guess, a little bit of flatter sections where it's a little bit easier to eat if there's any of those in the first part. But definitely starting early is better, not waiting until 90 minutes.
Yeah, cool. That's I'm trying to think of all the flat sections in this race, and
there's not really any.
There's not a lot of them. Not a lot of them. So we'll swing back to Sid Phillips' question. Suggestions for breakfast before the 25. You can always join me at one of the local cafes if you like, Sid. We'll have a big mosh up, but that may not be what Karen tells you to do.
Look, the pre-event meal, if you have taken care of, I guess, you're eating through, all of your training sessions, you have, preloaded your energy in the day or the couple of days beforehand, that breakfast before the 25K really needs to be, it's just a top up, but it really needs to be something that is familiar to you. It's easy to digest and it's something that you're comfortable eating. So that can be, and obviously it's going to have more of a carbohydrate focus, and the amount of time that you have to let the food digest will also dictate what you eat. So that could be anything from, like rice or like a rice pudding type thing with some fruit. It might be oats and yogurt and fruit. It might be eggs on toast. It might be like a pasta type thing, or it might be crumpets, which are generally my go-to, with banana and honey. So the thing with your pre-event meal, make sure that it is, you've done it before your other long runs, and you've got to take into account that you may be feeling a bit more nervous on event day as well. So give yourself that time for digestion to happen, and any like last minute toilet runs that you're going to need as well. So they're all things that you'd need to take into consideration. And that's why, and if you get nervous, do you find it harder to eat solid foods? So do you actually need to have like a liquid option or an easier to eat option? So they're things that you do need to think about and take into consideration as well. So play around with a couple of different things that you might like. And the main thing would be have a carbohydrate focus, have a little bit of protein, and fat will be included in that meal as well. But make sure that you've got, 2 hours ish for digestion. If you don't, then make it a smaller meal and keep it to something a little bit more simple, like just toast and jam and, fruit and a yogurt or something.
Yeah, cool. And what about water the day before? Should we be loading up on lots of water during the day before, but also during the race?
Yeah, so that's actually a good point. So when you're loading your muscles with carbohydrate through the foods you're eating, it is actually important to make sure you keep your water intake up as well, because when you store additional energy in your muscles, so that muscle glycogen is what's stored in your muscles from the carbohydrates that you eat, and that's what predominantly your muscles are going to be using, that and a mixture of fat depending on your intensity. And when you store extra energy in your muscles, you also store extra water. So you need to make sure that you keep the water intake up, in those couple of days when you're trying to eat more carbohydrates as well.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to wrap up at 9, so we've got about 5 minutes to go. I just wanted to ask you a question, Karen. I'll go to one of the ones that you sent me through, and it's a pretty important one, I think, and that is, how much do I need to eat, like in general, like life in general, not necessarily for the event, but, what should I be eating? Yep. We're talking here about the lead up. How much do we need to eat?
Yeah, so that's really important and plays, I guess, a really important aspect in like our overall health to be able to do endurance events. So a good, I guess, indication that you may be under eating, is you're not recovering from sessions well, like you are, you do a big long run on the weekends and you're still sore, or you're tired and fatigued, a couple of days later, you're getting reoccurrent niggles and you're not recovering from your injuries. You get sick all the time, or you might have some stress fractures that, or you get multiple stress fractures that are coming through. They're all signs that you may not be eating enough. And you can undereat, whether it's intentional or unintentional, with endurance sports. So there's a couple of different, I guess, ways that you can look at how much you're eating and to make sure you're eating enough. And there is what we call the performance plates, and I'll send out a link to this and the visual as well, so that you can have a visual representation of what I'm actually talking about. But it means that the days that you're training more, you're eating more, and the days that you're training less, you're eating less. And so that's one way of looking at, making sure that you are eating enough. So, and that will basically mean that, the carbohydrate amount on your plate will change depending on what training you have coming up. And being able to essentially cycle your food intake to match your exercise output. And that can be a really useful way to make sure you have carbohydrates there when you're doing high intensity sessions, and it's taken away when it's not there. So each plate is essentially made up of carbohydrates, protein, colors, and like a healthy fat source as well. And using that as a system to build all of your meals and your snacks as well. So that can be one simple way. So it's looking at how you're feeling and how you're recovering now, and then making sure you're eating through the majority of your training runs, unless they're, under that 90 minutes.
Nice. I can definitely get into this if it's all about the eating.
Yes, it is. You might be out on, you might be running KMR next year.
Yeah.
I was going to say the other thing to take into account is your life load, and not just the physical activity. I guess many people, or most people, are generally going to have a full-time job, family, and other commitments as well, which all take up energy, stress, and those things as well. So you need to take into account your whole life load, and not just the sport that you're eating for.
Yeah, really important stuff. Now, obviously, life's all about the socials these days. We'd like everyone to go to and follow Kunani Mountain Run on Insta. Where do we find you on the socials?
So I'm mostly on Insta at _Karen Hill _. And yeah, I post most stuff on there, or through I do a weekly newsletter as well, which you can contact me through that. Or I've got a link to that on my Insta, I think, as well. But that's where, I'm mostly there. Otherwise, I'll generally see people out on the trails as well. So feel free to say hi if you see me out and about.
Yeah, nice one. And you also run, I believe, a monthly lunchtime session?
Oh, yes, I do. So last Wednesday of every month at 12:30, just do a lunchtime live chat. It's on Zoom, and I will post the link on my Insta in the lead up to it. And that will either be answering a question that somebody has sent in about any nutrition topic, or it's just whoever is on there and wants to ask a question, we cover that topic on that day. So you're more than welcome to either send in questions. I do record it, so if you can't attend live, I do send out the recording as well. So that's just another way. I just figure the more we can eat in a good way, the more off-road adventures we can have, and keep doing it for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely right. We're getting lots of thanks here on the comments here, and we have just about to tick over 9 o'clock, so we are going to call it there. We will get some more information out to from Karen's session, including the stuff about the hammer nutrition and bulk. If you're interested in, don't forget to keep on tagging at Kunani Mountain Run in all your posts. Give Karen a follow. If you're interested in my carry on, I'm at ManeyTaz _MC on Instagram, and keeping you informed of all the stuff we're doing. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Thank you to Karen for your time, and also volunteering to be my guinea pig for session number 1. Looks like I've got to deal with my third world internet connection. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, as I said earlier on, where we're going to be talking to Simone Brick and Brodie Nankervis about the 25 kilometre mountain run, which is obviously part of the Golden Trail National Series. And we'll have the bearded man himself, Clinton. You may have seen him. He runs every event we have, and he's going to have a chat to you all about a course preview for the 66K Ultra. So thanks, Karen. Thanks, everyone, for joining in, and we look forward to seeing you out there on the trails.
Yeah. See you, everyone.